Hi, guys. Thank you for joining me tonight to celebrate Hydro and its birthday. Today feels super surreal. I cannot believe that I've made it to this point. Hi, Sally. Not sure who else is here, but thank you for joining me. I'm super nervous because I've only gone live on here one other time. And yeah, just everything about today has been surreal. But yeah, if you guys have any questions for me, I would love to do some Q&A if you have questions. But if not, at some point I'll probably read a little bit from the book and we could just hang out for a little bit. I don't know how long this will go. I'm just kind of going with the flow today. So yeah, if you have any questions, let me know. So Hydro, I originally wanted to release this a lot sooner because PYRO I released March 1st, 2022, and it's now more than 3 years later, which was not my original plan. I wanted to have them, more of a rapid release schedule, but, life got in the way, as life does. But the point is that we're here now. I bounced back, and here we are with book number 2. And I'm hoping that there will not be such a delay before book 3. I already have that pretty close to, like, we're getting there. I have the cover for book 3, and it's almost ready for beta readers. So we're in good shape there. But one thing at a time. Hi, Avery. And yeah, that's a good point. Avery pointed out that I should be hydrating. I actually have some sparkling strawberry juice thing that I thought I would celebrate with. So if you have a drink, I would love to share a toast with whoever is watching at some point, because yeah, it's been a labor of love getting to this point, and I just want to celebrate at this point. Yes, and you know that I love fun drinks. This is very, very important. Everyone needs to enjoy fun drinks. Yeah, does anyone have any questions, though, about my writing process, publishing process? How many cups are currently on my table? Just the one, actually. Just the one. I cleaned up quite a bit before this stream, as if I was having people over, but really it's just this. This is all you're seeing. But I'm silly. I like to get more nervous than I need to be for everything. Yeah, but normally I have like 3 or possibly more drinks on my desk. So that's a good question. Anybody else? While we're waiting for possibly more questions, I can talk more about the book. So this one's a little bit longer, but it's about the same length as PYRO. But it does get a little bit darker. So I have a content warning. There's a disclaimer in the front saying that there's a content warning, but the actual content warning is in the back, because I know some people don't like content warnings because they see them as spoilery, or they just don't want to know that there's whatever kind of content. But I wanted to appeal to both sides, so that's how I did that. I was really torn on how to do that, but figured that out. I would love to do a video at some point all about content warnings and the constant debate on whether or not to use them. But let's see. Even though there is it does get a bit dark in this book. There are a lot of shenanigans too. Um, you'll be shaking your head as you read this. What was she thinking? Because that's just how I am. Everything has to be goofy, but at the same time, I like to tackle like legit, heavy topics and real life struggles as well as, the fantastic. So, do you all have your fun drinks ready? Do you want to toast with me to hydro? What are the rest of you drinking tonight? Avery, I expect you to be hydrating. I'm curious about who the two other viewers are. It's not me. I closed out my link. Oh, nice. See, I didn't even think about that. I didn't even think about that. Silly me. Well, if you want, you can toast with Gatorade. Yeah, Sally has Gatorade. Okay. That's good. I'm glad that you guys are hydrating for hydro. So silly. Um well, let's have a toast then. To hydro, to the next book not taking as long. And just to new books, to reading, to literacy, to fantasy, um, creativity, to artists. Cheers. So, does anybody have any questions other than how many cups are on my table? If not, I can go ahead and hop into. Um, thanks, Sally. Yeah, I appreciate that. Um, I can hop into a reading if no one has any other comments or questions. Um, oh yeah, that's a good one. How did I keep myself motivated over the past 3 years? See, that was part of the problem, is that I lost my motivation from time to time. Like it came in waves because I was dealing with some mental health struggles, some issues in my personal life, and I was just trying to figure out life, and I couldn't figure it out, and so I couldn't bring myself to be creative. I just wasn't feeling that creativity. Um, but I guess it was a journey. I got back into reading more, and I was watching a ton of movies and TV shows. So I guess just diving into other stories made me more excited to create again. And I also just started removing things from my life that didn't serve me anymore, um, surrounding myself with things that brought me joy, and that helped me to get to a better place and find that creative spark again. And this year I've been writing a lot more this year, which I'm really happy about. And I want to keep that going. Like my plan is to post a lot more on YouTube and to go live a lot more, to just be more active in general in this community, because that's what makes me happiest. That's what brings me the most joy, is connecting with others and sharing my love of writing with other writers and readers and just friends and family. I want to share that joy, um instead of, hiding, you know, and not creating. Creating brings me the most joy. So, yeah. Also, music. Music is always a big one for me. Uh, those of you who know me well know that I have an addiction to making playlists. I have a playlist for every occasion, and that also applies to my writing. So every novel project that I've ever started has its own playlist that I add to frequently, that I listen to frequently. I just like, it's a way of helping me immerse myself in the world that I'm creating. The music sets the stage. And it helps that I also like to write with music on. So it helps me get into that headspace as well. So so yeah, I guess I just had to work on myself for a bit and figure out what made me happy and prioritize that. And just also taking some of the pressure off. Like after I released Pyro, I was like, well, what now? Like logically, like I have the rest of the series written. It's just a matter of rewriting them, getting them polished, getting them read by beta readers, and all the editing stages, all of that. Um, but despite having like a plan for the series, it's still daunting, like doing every step of the process by self-publishing. It's exhausting, and when I didn't have enough strength to do just everyday human things, then it was hard for me to be creative. And as an indie author, and having all of that responsibility on yourself, it's uh, it's really difficult because you can't just be like, okay, I wrote the book, now someone else can take care of it. Like, no, like I have to find editors and find someone to make the cover, and I format my own books. Um, that's a whole process. Um, and just like every step of the process takes a long time, takes a lot of effort and research. And I'm such a perfectionist too, so whatever the normal length of time is to get all of this done, probably double or triple that, and that's me. Because I just like to have everything just like exactly how I'm picturing it in my head. So, wow, I really just rambled a lot for that. But I mean, that was a really good question though. Motivation has been my biggest obstacle. So that's a really good thing to bring up for this book in particular. Can I talk more about why I chose the self-publishing route? Yeah, absolutely. So the thing about this is that technically I still do want to be a hybrid author, meaning that I am both self-published and hybrid published, or sorry, self-published and traditionally published. So that's still my goal someday. But after querying literary agents for a few years in high school and college, I I kind of hit a wall because I was like, I'm getting all these rejections. I don't know what I'm doing wrong, and I just started feeling hesitant about the whole thing because I also know that writing a book series that's not the easiest way to get yourself out there and get yourself noticed um, in the traditional publishing world, because when a publisher signs you, it means they're signing up for the whole series basically, and that's a huge risk to take on a new author. So it's kind of unusual. So I saw that my chances with that were not very good, just because I was starting with a series. And another thing is that I've been working on this series for so long, since I was like 11 or 12, and it's just so close to my heart, and I wanted to get it exactly right. I wanted to have full control over what it looks like, what it sounds like, just everything, every bit of the process I wanted control over. And that's the main reason why people choose self-publishing for the most part, is the control. Because when you publish traditionally, you the editors that you're working with can have you change all kinds of things, and like you also your title usually ends up getting changed based on the market and other books in the genre, what's trending, and also the cover, that also depends on what's trending. So I just wanted to make sure that I had full control over my work and full creative control. So yeah, I guess that's the answer for that, but I could probably talk about that for a long time, because I really deliberated. Um I waffled back and forth for a while, but I ended up finding some good fellow author tubers here on YouTube who went the self-publishing route and were really successful, and I was really intrigued by their energy and their success, and I'm still connected with them now. I watch their videos, I read their books, the whole thing. It really is a community. Indie authors like to hang out together, on the internet and in person. And I just really like the warmth of that community, and I wanted to be a part of it. Okay, now I'm falling behind here. How does your writing process differ from the formula we learned in school? Well, my process it's barely even a process. I mean, I feel like it varies with every book that I write, because I don't tend to do a whole lot of planning. I mostly am a discovery writer. I just kind of go with the flow. Like, I have a loose idea of what I want to happen or who the characters are, and I just kind of let them take the reins. I let the characters decide, which doesn't always end well. Sometimes I have to rein them in and be like, "Whoa, dude, that was a bad idea. Let's back up a little bit." Um, but yeah, I don't really have a formula. Yeah, it just really depends on the story. With this series, it's been interesting because, I mean, being a discovery writer and writing a series is really difficult, because there are a lot of characters that you need to keep track of and like make sure their story arcs make sense and all of that. And like, there really is a lot of structure in books that you don't realize as a reader until you're writing. um, but honestly, a lot of the formula happens in the editing stage, I guess, because I actually sit back and go, okay, what did I just write? What is actually happening here? And how can I clean it up so that it actually makes sense? Because the rough draft does not always read very well, which is why it's a rough draft. Um, and that's part of how I keep myself going. I tell myself it doesn't have to be perfect the first time around. You can always come back. In fact, you should come back. So, yeah, my process is honestly all over the place. It's like flipping a coin. But like, the more that I write, though, I feel like I learn more with each book that I write, and because I'm still kind of figuring out the best thing that works for me in terms of setting up plot structure and making sure I have all the beats of a story covered and that they are happening. Like basically getting the pacing right. The pacing can be tricky. Yeah, but so I guess I kind of do a little bit of plotting as I go if I get stuck. It's mostly if I get stuck, and the rest of the time I just kind of go with the flow. And it's the editing stage where I'm like, what does that even make sense? Should I just rewrite this entire chapter? And sometimes that's what you got to do is just rewrite things. Like for both Pyro and Hydro, I completely rewrote them from scratch because the first versions of them, in both cases I wrote when I was much younger, like early high school, even middle school, like really young, and didn't have a whole lot of life experience or experience with writing. Like, every year I grow as a writer based on what I've been reading and writing, what I've been learning. Um, I keep losing my train of thought here. um, yeah, so with both of those books, the best solution was to just start from scratch and write the story again. Like I knew it like the back of my hand, so it wasn't a big deal to do a rewrite, like just referencing the old version whenever I needed a guide. So I guess you could say the first version was kind of like my outline, but I just needed to write it with, the with the I guess the mature vocabulary I had, or I don't know. Just I don't know. I don't know how to explain that, but it came out a lot better the second time. Especially with Hydro. There were some real issues. And the story was very different originally. There were a couple parts that I went in a totally different direction with. So a lot happens in the writing process. All right. How do you measure improvement and success in your writing? Well, it's sort of like, I guess, a feeling that I have when I read my own work. Like, I can tell if something is good or not. And, it's subjective. Like, one man's trash is another man's treasure kind of thing. Like, someone might read what I think is a good short story, and they might be like, that made no sense, and I didn't like anything about it. Not even like the imagery or just the plot or whatever. So like a lot of it is just like a feeling I have that I'm not even sure I could articulate. And with improving, yeah, I mean that kind of is related to what I was just talking about. Like when you read old drafts, or when I read old drafts of Pyro and Hydro, I'm kind of embarrassed. I'm like, wow, I'm glad no one read that version because they're not talking like real people and they're making dumb choices, and like it just doesn't make any sense. So I guess just like as I get older, I have done a better job um with characterization, I guess, with story arcs, and like figuring out how a person can make certain choices and then learn from their mistakes and make different choices later on. So, yeah, life experience really makes a difference when it comes to writing. I don't really know what else to say for this question. I mean, validation from others is certainly helpful. So, I mean, we have writing groups together that we do, and that has been great, just getting feedback from other writers, but also not just other writers, but friends, family, anyone who's interested, really. They don't have to be a writer, but just getting someone to read your work can be helpful because you get feedback, you get advice that you never would have thought of on your own, just a different point of view. So sometimes I don't realize how good something is until someone points it out or is like, wow, I really like what you did here. And sometimes you just really need to hear that. So yeah, this is why I like hanging out with other writers because we help each other. It's a community. So she would have self-published if it was more a thing back in her day. Yeah. Yeah, totally. It didn't really become a thing until like 2010. Like around then is when it started to become kind of big, or not big, but like people started to go that route. So yeah, and I mean I know of some authors who were traditionally published at first and then actually switched once they had a following. I know of at least one example. Because they had a following. Why would they stick with a traditional publisher if they could be successful on their own and have full creative control? Like, I mean, it makes sense. Yep. What do you think makes genre fiction important? Hmm. That's a tricky question. I mean, I guess it's just that it appeals to different different audience depending on the genre, and like gets more people to read because I don't know, it's just easier when you have a niche, when you have somewhere that feels like home to you when it comes to books. Um, and it makes it easier to find where you belong as a reader and a writer. Um, I don't really know. I don't know. Can you like be more specific with that? I'm trying to think of what else. Hmm. I'm thinking. I'm gonna come back to that actually. I'm gonna come back to it. Yeah. So Melissa, I'm assuming everyone in this chat has read PYRO. If you haven't, that's okay. But yeah, Melissa's the main character, the one on the cover, and I mean, in some ways, she's me. I think that's the case with a lot of authors. I mean, they relate to their main characters. I feel like I'm a little bit in all of my characters, so like that makes sense. But also, I think she's inspired by some friends that I've had over the years, just sort of a hybrid um a hybrid of like a spunky, headstrong teenage girl who doesn't put up with nonsense, can stand up for herself, and is independent and intelligent. Just, I was basically trying to go for like a good role model for young women. Someone that I would look up to, which really makes sense when you take into account that I started writing PYRO when I was, I think, 11 or 12. So at the time, I really looked up to high schoolers and college students, this whole age range. So I thought she was really cool. She was like, you know, a big sister or something, someone that I wanted to be when I grew up. So, but also she lives inside me because she's my character. Like, I feel like proud of her, if that makes sense. Like, maybe it doesn't make sense. I don't know how to explain this to, like, this might sound weird to anyone who's not a writer. But like I legitimately feel proud of her when she makes good choices, when she stands up for herself and learns from her mistakes, things like that. Yeah, especially cuz I know her whole life story. I know where she's come from. And I mean, I know where she's going. The rest of you don't yet. Yeah, but I guess she feels like both like someone who I look up to and want to be, but at the same time, she's like my child and I'm proud of her. So something in between. But she's also kind of me. Sometimes. How has she and your other characters changed since you first started writing? How have they changed from book 1 to book 2? Oh man, in more ways than I can even tell in this live stream because some of it would be very spoilery. But I've discovered things about myself while writing these books, and so have my characters. And it just kind of unfolded organically, and it's almost beautiful the way that happened. Like we grew up together, you could say. So, yeah, they've changed a lot. Like I was saying earlier, like some of my early drafts, they didn't even sound like their choices were ridiculous. Nothing that they said, like, it didn't make sense because, it was just so juvenile. I was so young at the time. So they grew up along with me. And I mean, they sound a lot more like actual people now when you read the dialogue and the inner thoughts. Oh man, especially Melissa and Beth. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, everyone has changed a lot. Willow has changed a lot too. Um, yeah, it's hard to go into detail about this without giving everything away. But, we can talk about this privately. Maybe after you've beta read book 3. Okay, yeah, those were some really good questions. Thank you, guys. Does anyone else have anything for me? Or should we dive into a little reading? I love talking about this stuff. I could talk about writing like all day. I love this stuff. I was really struggling with picking what excerpt to read, but I think I'm going to end up reading half of chapter 1 because the second half is kind of crazy. What are you looking forward to most in Hydro? Do you mean like looking forward, excited for? Like excited for other people to read? Well, honestly, I think I'm just excited for people to get to the end. Like, I'm excited for other people to have read this because I only had 2 beta readers for Hydro, and then obviously my editors read it. But other than that, not a whole lot of people have seen this one ahead of time. So part of me is just longing for some more validation. Like, this isn't like, you're not crazy. This makes sense. This I don't know. I just want people to have enjoyed it and gotten something out of it. So I guess that's what I'm most looking forward to. Um, there's a new character in this book that you'll meet. I'm also interested to hear any thoughts about that person. And there's some setup for things that might occur in book 3, and I guess I'm excited to set all of that up for people, get them excited for the next one. Yeah, I want people to know what's been in my brain for the past over 10 years. Yeah, I'm just excited for people to read it and get to the end and, review it and let me know what they think. Let me know that they're excited for book 3, because I know I am. Any last questions? I open up to the book. Also, depending on how crazy you want this to get, I could read the whole first chapter. I just want to let you know that if I read the whole thing, like it gets kind of crazy at the end. And like you're going to want to immediately read more. And I just don't know what level of torture you guys are down for. Do it. Oh, hi, Lauren. You want me to do it? You want to be shook, as the kids say? I mean, if you insist. But also, yeah, if you haven't read PYRO, I mean, you definitely have to be okay with spoilers, because I'm building this up a lot, guys, but I'm not joking. Like, it really takes a turn in the very first chapter. Torture is always morally correct. Well, sure. Okay, well, if that's all, then I guess we will go ahead and get started with a little reading, a little excerpt from Hydro. There is a prologue, but I'm going to skip over that for this live. Part 1 is called The Broken. Okay, here we go. Chapter 1. Melissa. Modern day, Tuesday, September 6th, Cincinnati, Ohio. I usually liked rainy days, but there was something about this one that didn't feel quite right. First days of school were usually sunny and bright, the perfect setting for a new beginning. This one was everything but. The sky was dark and foreboding, and thunder made the walls of my dorm rattle. During orientation week, I had met plenty of fellow freshmen, but I hadn't met anyone as cool as Sierra and Willow. I was back to my school routine, burying myself in schoolwork and not mingling. Even though it had barely been the first day of class for a few hours, I had already completed several pre-assignments and peeked through some of my textbooks. Now that I wasn't working at the diner every day, I had a lot more time on my hands. I didn't miss Amber as much as I had thought I would, but now that I had a way to teleport, she wasn't so far away. Cincinnati may as well have been a short walk from Cleveland. I sat down at my desk. I had 45 minutes until my next class started, so I pulled out my phone to check my messages. Good morning, Ginger Snap. Can't wait to see you tonight. I giggled quietly and then looked over at my roommate to make sure I hadn't disturbed her. She didn't have class until 11, and apparently she was the kind of person to sleep as long as possible. It took a certain amount of coffee to get me going, but I didn't mind getting up early for an 8 a.m. class. Skylar was blonde and gorgeous, With her locks splayed out across her pillow, she looked like Sleeping Beauty or another sleeping princess. On moving day, when I first met her, I knew right away that we couldn't be friends. She was a cheerleader type, and we had absolutely nothing in common. She hated reading and preferred to spend most of her time playing video games. I anticipated that she would be a partier, hiding booze and boys in our room every chance she got. It was too bad I couldn't have gone without a roommate. I was going to have to try my best to ignore her. Since I didn't have anything better to do, I pulled my vanishing rock out of the bottom drawer of my desk and smiled down at its black and red coloring. My surroundings began to disappear, and I closed my eyes as I played the image of the underground repeatedly in my head. I saw Felix first, just as I had the first time I had visited. He slowly paced at the end of the hallway, but stopped when he saw me. "Hey, stranger, how is your first day going?" "One class down, 4 to go. Not bad so far. Where is everyone?" It was unnaturally quiet. "Sierra has finally decided to relax the number of guards on duty since Lady Catherine's death, and all the spies she had stationed elsewhere are back here helping with training. You could say things have gone back to normal, but that depends on your definition of normal." I felt a momentary queasiness at the mention of Lady Catherine. Even after months with no sign of her, I couldn't help but worry. There wasn't a body. My biggest worry repeated itself like a mantra in my mind. Once the subject had been broached, the rest of my day was destined to be full of worry. Oh, weird. I couldn't think of anything else to say as dark, violent memories circled in my head. Where's Willow? After starting at a new school without him, and then hearing about how lax security had gotten since her death, I longed for the comfort of Willow's warm embrace. There was just something about having his arms wrapped around me that made me feel safe and happy no matter what was going on. He's still training, though it's almost time for his lunch break. What? I had just eaten breakfast. Oh yeah, time zone difference. He nodded and flashed a toothy grin, a Felix classic. Now that Willow was out of school, he was completely focused on training to become a guard. It had been his obsession all summer, which had been annoying considering it was my last summer before going out into foreign adult lands. I couldn't exactly blame him, though, considering what had been happening to his family and friends. Life as he knew it had been uprooted, and he had adjusted accordingly. "I guess I'll go find him," I said. "Thanks, Felix." "No problem. Good luck with the rest of your classes." "Syllabus day. I'm sure it will be a breeze." I rolled my eyes, and he laughed. Not willing to waste a single second since I only had 40 minutes left until class, I teleported to the training field. The great thing about being in Parsia was that I didn't have to worry about being secretive while teleporting. I spotted Willow soon after arriving, sweaty in his gray t-shirt and black track pants. I exhaled slowly at my wild attraction to him. Sometimes it was overwhelming how much he got to me, especially when he was using a sword. His sparring partner was Frida, and I was just in time to see her knock him to the ground with a swipe of the staff she held. From the ground, he held up his sword to defend himself, but Frida knocked it from his hand. He laughed nervously, but Frida was the picture of seriousness as she pulled him to his feet. He dusted himself off and then spotted me. "Hey, Melissa!" He jogged toward me, ignoring Frida's shouts behind him of how he could improve. "Hi, I missed you." I closed my eyes as his arms encircled me. "I hope you don't always end up on the ground like that." "Only when you're around," he said with a smirk. "Frida is a formidable opponent, so no guards in training ever win against her. I do need to practice more, though. I just can't get the hang of the longsword. It's so heavy. I'm much better with the staff." "It's probably harder to kill someone with a staff," I said, thinking of Lady Catherine. He nodded. "How was class?" "I've only had one, but it was good. Philosophy. Cool professor." "How has training been?" "The usual. Not bad. Except I have to get bossed around by this one." He bobbed his head backward toward Frida, and I giggled. Unfortunately, Frida overheard and spun around to glare in our direction. "Watch it," she said. "Remember, I have the power to kick you out of the program." Willow and I laughed. We both knew she wasn't serious. Willow was one of her most dedicated pupils, even if he didn't have any physical talents whatsoever. I can't stay much longer, I said. I have to get ready for my next class. I just really wanted to see you. Yeah, I have to get back to training. Hey, are you still good for later? We had been planning to go out to celebrate the anniversary of our first date a few days early. It was nice to have something to look forward to, especially when it involved Willow. I already had my outfit planned and everything. Things had been so different since I had fallen in love. I was more deliberate about every choice I made now that it involved another person. Absolutely. The thought of our date has been keeping me going. I'm glad to hear it. He bent and gave me a quick kiss that left my lips feeling tingly. I've been looking forward to us having some time to ourselves. I gave him a wave before I teleported back to my dorm room. Skylar was still sleeping, of course. I thought about Willow and replayed his electric kiss as I verified my school bag still had all the essentials. The campus was fairly small, so I didn't have far to walk to any of my classes, but it was far enough that I had plenty of time to daydream. I'd been doing that a lot lately since Willow and I had been getting more serious. I started wondering when we would take things to the next level. The topic had barely been broached, but I thought we understood each other. Sex was more than just a few moments of passion. It was a shared intimacy that we both wanted to be special. There was no rush, but we had both been so busy all summer with our respective duties that we hadn't gotten around to discussing it. As I sat through dull discussions of syllabi in my classes, I couldn't help but think about our date and how much we both needed and deserved some alone time together. I wore my favorite pair of brown corduroy pants, the most autumnal piece of clothing I owned, and a frilly purple blouse. It wasn't super fancy, but I felt pretty, and I still felt like me, which mattered. At the last second, I decided to put on some mascara. I didn't often wear makeup, but this was a very special occasion. It was my first relationship, and we had been a couple for an entire year. I thought it was something to be proud of. I finally felt kind of like a normal person, even though I had abilities. I met Willow at the French cafe in Cincinnati we had picked out. It was a quaint place with an elaborate menu and little tables meant for two. It's so interesting going to other restaurants, having worked at the diner, I said as we waited for our drinks. Amber's place is nowhere near this fancy or cute, but there's still something special about it. I agree. For one, this place doesn't have a beautiful red-headed waitress with heterochromatic eyes. He leaned against the table, grinning at me. Willow, stop. Easier said than done. It's hard for me to take my eyes off you, you know. Same here, but especially after you're all sweaty from training. He laughed. Obviously, that's why I decided to become a guard, so you'd have more reasons to fawn over me. Obviously. The truth was, I didn't need more reasons to fawn over him. I loved everything about him, from his floppy black hair down to the way he got excited about math problems. How are things going at school? It's fine. Nothing too eventful so far. I hate my roommate, though, Skylar. She's such a slacker, and she's one of those pretty girls, the kind that all the guys fall for. Wow, hate is a strong word. It's not a good sign that you already hate her when you have to live with her for the rest of the year. I shrugged. Maybe we'll be able to ignore each other. It's just hard when I can feel her judging me for doing my pre-assignments. Maybe she'll drop out. Melissa! But he was laughing. I've never seen this side of you. I'd hate to get on your bad side. You know, and also be a girl. I rolled my eyes. Our drinks came then, and the waitress took our orders. I ordered a croque monsieur, and Willow ordered quiche Lorraine. Boy, am I hungry, I said, sipping my orangina, my favorite citrusy drink to order at French places. It's hard to find time to eat when my classes are practically back to back. I hear you. Frida has been working me like a horse, so I'm always starving, Willow said, and I raised my eyebrows. Yeah, I know that sounds wrong. I giggled mischievously. It's been a whole year somehow, and I still have so much fun with you. Let's just hope I don't get boring anytime soon, he said. My eyes were practically heart-shaped when we left the cafe. It was the perfect day with the perfect food and, of course, perfect company. I held Willow's hand as we walked down the street, and then, Once shadows allowed us the privacy to teleport down the hallway of my dorm, miles away. I can't believe you haven't seen my room yet, I said, tugging him toward my door. I moved in over a week ago. I'm sorry I've been so busy. I'm a horrible boyfriend. No, you aren't. I gave him a quick kiss on the cheek before opening my door. Skylar was sprawled out on her bed, scrolling on her phone. Shockingly, she had managed to pull herself away from her computer games for once. As usual, she wore the shortest shorts in existence and a crop top. She had the body for it, but I felt like she was always flaunting it. Hey, she said when we walked in. She'd spoken to Willow, not me, her roommate. Hey, Willow, this is my roommate, Skylar. Skylar, this is my boyfriend, Willow. She flashed a toothy grin that made my stomach muscles tighten. Hey there. I fully expected her to comment on his name like everyone else did, so it was strange to me when she didn't. Willow, can you hang out while I go to the bathroom? I'll be right back. He nodded, and I hurried down the hall to the bathroom. I didn't want to leave him alone with her for too long. As I washed my hands, I looked at my appearance. Weird eyes, check. Floppy side bangs, check. No spinach in my teeth, check. I wondered what Willow would be looking at when I got back to the room, because surely he wasn't talking with Skylar. Maybe he'd be looking at the small collection of books I had chosen to bring to college with me. Maybe he'd be looking at the stuffed monkey in my bed, Mr. Wiggles. They had met before, but were still acquaintances. Hey, what do you want to do now? I stopped when I walked into my room. Willow wasn't examining any of my possessions. He was too busy examining Skylar. Somehow, the two of them had ended up on her bed, and now they were making out passionately, grabbing at each other's bodies. My heart jumped, and a lump formed in the back of my throat. Every muscle in my body tensed. He and I never make out like that anymore, I thought. He and I... Willow! My voice cracked slightly, betraying me not unlike Willow had. What are you doing? I was trying to remain calm, even though there was no reason to, but I thought I sounded hysterical. They broke apart for a moment, long enough for Skylar to smile triumphantly at me. Willow just blinked at me and didn't say anything. I grabbed my school bag and left the room. When I was outside the dorm, I started running and didn't stop. I passed under tree after tree, and then finally decided to teleport. I was completely out of breath as I ran down the hallway of the underground. I was far from athletic, but all I knew was that I needed to put as much distance as possible between me and that scene back at my dorm. Last time there had been guards around, but no one was in the hallway now when I needed there to be someone. The tears were flying down my cheeks with no signs of stopping. My chest heaved as I slowed to a stop. I looked around desperately, trying to think of a place to go or a person to seek out. Sierra was too busy for me these days. Adam was my dad, and the idea of facing him or Amber right now was mortifying. Then I thought of Felix. I walked toward his room without a second thought. I knew the way so well that I didn't even need to think about it. I knocked softly on his door and walked in when there was no answer. It was weird being inside his room when he wasn't there. I sat down on his bed and looked around the room at the usual landmarks: his arsenal banner, his well-organized shelves of books, CDs, and movies. It smelled like Felix, warm and friendly, like a mug of homemade hot chocolate, with love sprinkled on top in the form of cinnamon and whipped cream. Felix was a breath of fresh air compared to most guys. Even his brother Scott was a handful. I had thought Willow was different too, but apparently he was just as bad as the frat boys I saw around my college campus. In the end, he was just like them and only cared about himself. I lay back on the bed and slipped my shoes off. Utterly exhausted, all I could do was stare at the ceiling for a minute. I had never felt this way before. It was like someone had stuck their hand inside me and pulled out some of my essential organs, including my heart. Now I was an empty shell with no purpose, it seemed. I couldn't think of a single thing I felt like doing. I didn't even feel like sleeping, since I would probably just dream about Willow or something more horrific, like, say, a certain murder I had witnessed. The best thing I could do was just lie there. I closed my eyes to envelop myself in a comforting darkness, though I didn't intend to sleep. I tried focusing on my breathing, which Amber had always said was her preferred method of calming down. When she was really upset, nothing else would work. I discovered that I was a lot like her, because taking a few deep breaths did indeed make me feel more at ease. My world had decided to come crashing down on my head all at once, but that was just the way it was. This didn't feel like real life. Surely I was going to open my eyes the next day and go to class like normal, and then maybe see Willow later, and who was I kidding? Tears began to leak out the sides of my eyes and down to my ears. A lump formed in my throat, but I didn't even bother trying to swallow it. I let the pain overwhelm me. There was nothing left for me to do. Willow was gone. He had made it clear how he felt, or didn't feel, about me. What kind of person would blatantly cheat like that right after celebrating the first anniversary of being together? A horrible person, and apparently that described Willow now. I began to replay every memory I had of us together. He had seemed so genuinely in love with me, which only made me cry harder. In the beginning, he had done a good job of keeping his nature as an elf a secret until it was time for him to tell me. Who was to say he hadn't been keeping his true feelings a secret this entire time, too? He probably just wanted what Skylar was probably giving to him right now. I covered my eyes with my palms and let out a sigh before I could stop myself. It sounded ridiculous, so I rolled over and muffled my cries with Felix's pillow. I knew I was being disgusting and pathetic, but I didn't care. The way I wanted to be was never enough for anyone, not even Willow. And why did Skylar feel the need to tear my life apart? She didn't even know me. Why did girls like her always mess with girls like me? At least they did in the movies. I had managed to ignore bullies before, so why was she any different? She was just a girl, but now she would never be just that to me anymore. I couldn't get the picture of them out of my head. Her tongue in his mouth, his hand on the small of her back. I wanted him to hold me like that and not anyone else. We were going to be together forever, I had thought. I'd had visions of us living in Parsia together. I would do something cool, and he would do math things, and we would be happy together, being weird and not fully human. None of that could happen now. Now I had to start from scratch with my vision for the future. Either that, or revert to what I'd been dreaming about before meeting Willow and Sierra. Writing a book, not working in a diner, doing something with the degree I would earn, maybe becoming a crazy cat lady. It certainly wasn't out of the question. I had always done well on my own. Even in elementary school, when kids were supposed to make lots of friends and go to lots of birthday parties, I was perfectly comfortable reading a book up in a good tree while Amber made lemonade. I didn't have any bad memories from those times of solitude. Maybe I'd had enough time in the light, and it was time for me to crawl back to the shadows of solitude where I belonged. I wanted everything to burn. Felix's bed, the world around me, Willow's face. I didn't care. I wanted it all to go up in flames, consumed by my fury. But when I held a hand out, cupped in front of my face, nothing happened. I frowned and focused harder, concentrating with every fiber of my being. My fire wouldn't come. That's the end of chapter 1. Are you glad that you asked for torture? How's everybody feeling? Yeah, not great. Yeah. Yeah, I'm so sorry. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm glad that I could share that moment with you guys. I'm sorry to upset you on a live stream. Yeah, isn't that the question? Well, you will have to pick up a copy of Hydro and find out, I guess, the answer to these questions. And does anyone else have anything else for me? Any other comments, any other questions? Because this is all I had planned for the evening for the live stream. But I'm glad I could share this with you all. And hopefully I didn't upset anyone too badly by reading that difficult section aloud for all of you. I really deliberated. I was like, I don't know if that's the right vibe for a release day stream, but you asked to be tortured, so you you chose the red pill. Well, it's cricket, so I guess I'll start to ramp this thing up. Thank you guys so much for joining me tonight. I really appreciate you for tuning in, for supporting me. Whether you do that just by, giving me some extra views on this video, or if you actually purchased a copy of Hydro and or Pyro, or if you plan to in the future. And if you do end up reading my books, please don't forget to leave a review on the site that you bought them from, or Goodreads, anything like that. Reviews really help indie authors a ton, because no one wants to buy a book if there aren't any reviews under it. Like, that just seems sketchy. So yeah, and just word of mouth, like, spread the word. If you liked it, tell somebody. I really appreciate you guys, and I love you so much. And I mean, I couldn't have done this without support. Like, if I didn't have anyone interested in me writing, maybe I wouldn't do it. I don't know. Or I wouldn't consider publishing. So you all are part of why I do this, for sure. So yeah, I'm gonna call it a night now. Have a great Tuesday, everyone. Happy Hydro release day, and I will see you all sometime later. Bye.